So you have to play from a little bit of reality in order for the audience to respond.
It's quite one thing that I've heard of, and have you heard of this as well? The thing called the law of reverse effort. Have you heard of that? Or the backwards?
The law of reverse effort.
Yeah, it's a an idea where people chase these goals or they do these things for years and years and they don't get them, and you see someone who doesn't do it and then they get what they want. That's not a good
Oh,
example. Let
no,
me.
I've not heard of that specific. I've not heard it referred to as that, but I do know about the law of attraction, which is about energy and vibration, and you actually bring to you what energy and vibration you put out. But that's a whole different podcast, I think.
Yes.
So yes, but no, there is something to be said for that. The less effort, but because I think the less effort you put into something, and I don't mean that you don't care, but I just mean don't hold on so tight. So then your creative conduit is relaxed and open. Then you have access to all of your humor, to all of your everything. Whereas if you're tensed up, then your creativity closes down.
I didn't at all explain that concept or idea well, but the point I was getting at is one thing that I've noticed myself when I'm on stage is that when I try and write a joke or I put so much effort in or I really try and prepare something, it doesn't go well. But the time is a big moment for me was I did a Zoom gig and I didn't have much time to prepare a set, so I just wrote down topics and then I wasn't trying to be funny. I was more focused on trying to survive because it was an awkward situation because I didn't prepare.
Right.
And I did a million times better in that situation than I did any time where I try and prepare it. And I just went with whatever was there. And I
Yeah.
didn't have any sort of doubts or anything. And I wasn't trying to be funny. I was just trying to survive the situation.
Yeah, interesting. That's really interesting because when you change your intention, then the whole communication alters. And so your intention was not, I'm going to make you laugh, but I'm just going to get through this without making a fool of myself.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that that maybe made you relax because you weren't going for the laugh. And so, we've all been at a dinner party where someone's told a joke and they have this really just like sticky energy, like they're so desperate for you to laugh at them. And it just makes you recoil. It just makes you want to run away. Whereas if you're just being yourself and you're telling a story that you think is really funny, then that translates and then people will respond to that. So it's really just all, so I mean, it all just comes down to energy and focus. Where are you focused? One of the examples I really like to use is about focus and mindset and everything in performance. And that is that a sculptor, if you imagine a sculptor who's molding a bust out of clay, they are not thinking to themselves, what are my thumbs doing? What are my fingers doing? They don't think of it in those terms. They're just focused on expressing. And then so they're looking beyond the apparatus, which is their hands. And the voiceovers are the same. They should not be thinking about what is my voice doing? They should be thinking about expressing. And with stand up, don't think about, how are my jokes doing? Was that funny? So you got to get out of your head. And if once you get out of your head, then you can be yourself, then the laughter will come naturally because you'll be finding it funny. Whereas if you're tensed up, forget it.
Hmm. But that's one of the things that I wanted to sort of chat about because I focused on something else rather than the actual outcome, and I ended up getting some of the outcomes rather than when if I just focus on the outcome.
Exactly. Exactly that. And that's what I teach in voiceover. Do not focus on what the voice should sound like at the end. Focus on who you are, who you're talking to, what your intention is, and a few other parameters. And then that end product will take care of itself. So, translating that into stand up, what you just said beautifully, don't focus on the outcome, don't focus on the laugh. Focus on just the joy of telling that story, the joy of telling that joke, the joy of doing that physical bit, whatever it is. Because if you're having fun on stage as a stand-up, then the audience is free to have fun. But if you're standing up there all tense, going, I hope they laugh, I hope they laugh, that's a really icky, horrible stinky energy, and people will just look away and they'll start squirming in their seats, and it'll be really super uncomfortable. So it's just, so this is what I talk about connection. If you as a performer are connected to what you're saying and doing, and you're feeling your way through rather than thinking your way through, then the audience can join you in that joy, and laugh with you or at you, whatever you want them to do. But you've got to be in that right space. Otherwise, it's just going to be awkward and horrible.
And following on a point that we discussed before we start the podcast, I said that one of the things that comedians do is when they have something that does well and then they keep performing again and again and the delivery is completely different and they fail and it doesn't become fun. You said to me that you got to focus on getting the parameters right. Would you be able to divulge a bit more into that?
Yeah, of course. I mean, when I say parameters, you could also substitute the word foundations. So let's just take voiceover, for example. I don't want to get too far into voiceover because I don't want your audience to switch off. But in voiceover, if you set foundations, and that is who you are as the speaker. So, are you a member of the company, or are you speaking as an outside authority, things like that. Who are you as the voiceover? Who are you talking to? Who is your audience? So all these things can be translated into stand-up. Who's your audience? And what's your intention? Now, obviously, as a stand-up, your intention is to make the audience laugh. But that's really general. Of course you want to make the audience laugh, but you need to set yourself up so that the laughter is almost incidental. So the laughter is just kind of a byproduct of what everything else that's happening on stage. So if you set yourself up as a stand-up and you say, okay, my intention, of course, my intention is to make people laugh, but below that, underneath that intention, could be my intention is to make myself laugh. My intention is to give myself that tickle in my solar plexus that makes me feel like, I'm enjoying myself. Or my intention is to connect with the audience, or, whatever your intention is. But if you've set those parameters, those foundations, then now I know stand-up comedy is a little bit different, but it's certainly in voiceover. If you set those parameters, those foundations, then the voiceover read pretty much takes care of itself. And I'm going to just go out on a limb here. I've not thought too much about this, but I think in stand-up, you could probably do the same type of thing, where you could get your mindset right, get your focus right, and then your material will just come out the way that it's meant to. Your material will just come out the right way if you're relaxed about it and confident.
And don't think too much.
Exactly. The analytical mind, I talk a lot about this in my voiceover teaching, is that the analytical mind can really be your enemy, because it's so, you have the inner critic, which is constantly telling you that what you're trying to create is no good. You have mental clutter. You have your analytical brain telling you, say it this way, pause here, do an inflection here, and that just gets in your way. But if you can get rid of that, I don't mean like have a lobotomy, but if you can, quiet that analytical part of your brain and swoop over to the right side of the brain, which is where your creativity is, and that's where you're connected to intuition and instincts and your sense of humor, all that sort of in your right brain. So, and really good bridges for that. There's 3 really good bridges for that, and I think you could apply this to stand-up comedy too. Excuse me. So 3 really great bridges for that. One is emotion. So tap into the emotion of what you're saying. Another one is visualization. So if you're visualizing what you're talking about, or you're visualizing something, that's in your right brain. And what is the third one? So emotion, visualizing. Oh, and body movement. So if you get the energy going in the body, that takes it away from the analytical mind. And so if you start to flounder on stage, you could just sort of, you could do a physical comedy something, or just remind your body that it's in the game. So it's really just about balancing your mind, body, and voice. That's how I teach voiceover. And I think you could apply that to stand up as well. It's everything in balance.
And yeah, you have an outcome, but try and focus on things that you think will help you achieve that outcome in terms of your mindset. focus on something else.
Exactly. Focus on something that you can control. Because if you're on stage doing stand-up, I mean, there's nothing more anxiety producing, or nothing that makes you feel as vulnerable as that. It's an incredible experience. And when it works, when the audience is with you, it's so delicious. But when they're against you, it's just like, I mean, it's standing naked in the town square time. It's like the stuff that nightmares are made out of, when it's not working. So, you just got to have fun yourself, and hope that the audience connects with that.